Well, it wasn't my fault that the relationship ended.
It wasn't mine either.
What do you mean it wasn't yours?
I mean that it wasn't mine.
Hi everyone, it's Evie. So in today's video, I will be, answering some questions. You guys can get to know me better. And with the help of that, I'll be inviting someone very cool bean. I'll put his handles down below if you want to follow him. And cue the person. Come here, person. Yeah. So everybody, this is Jae'Syns.
Hello.
He is my ex-boyfriend. I met him in high school. So he's known me for how many years now? 7, almost 8 years. So we've gotten to know each other pretty well, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
So in the midst of all of this, Jae'Syns here is going to actually, answer some of my questions as best as he can. And yeah, let's get started, shall we?
Alright,
Sorry about that. We were obviously having some technical difficulties. So, question. Jae'Syns, knowing me around when you first met me, did you notice any signs of my DID?
at the time, I didn't know any signs, but now that I do, I can say that one thing I noticed was the ticking and the shaking that you usually do whenever you're trying to fight a switch.
Did you, did you ever hear, anyone ever, ask you, hey, do you know what's wrong with her? Why did she do that?
Not what's wrong with her, more or less, is your friend okay?
So, who was the first alter you met out of all of us?
The first alter I met was your sister, Emily.
Hey everybody, my name is Emily. How was that?
Emily calmed down a certain amount now, but...
And for those that don't know, I will link it in my TikTok down below so you can see this video, but alters, people with DID who have alters can have relationships with each other, romantic, friendly, whatever, and we can have family relationships. I am not the real host. Evie is. When she first dissociated, she created me and Emily, and we are identical twins. So I'm just gonna put that plug right in there. Continue.
Emily calmed down considerably a lot now, but back then when we were kids, I would say that Emily was a lot more aggressive and more, I suppose, serious is the word I want to use. She took her role as protector to a completely different level.
I mean, I know, I live with her. So, as you know, you slept over quite a bit. Get your head out the gutter. It was friendshipness only. Don't think of anything, you little nasties. So you slept over quite a bit and you lived with me for a while. Mm-hmm. When we switch, do you notice any differences in personalities, hobbies, dressing, makeup? What do you, know anything? Did you ever notice any of that?
Well, that's a pretty long list that we're gonna have to go through. So I'm just gonna pick M for Emily, or M as I call her for right now, because we want to try to keep this short. When we were kids, Emily, she usually liked to keep her hair, a lot more, curly and wavy. Her style back then was a little bit more...
grungy?
Yeah. And her makeup, as far as I remember, I don't think I ever seen Emily wear anything other than eyeliner when we were kids.
And did you notice a change in the way we talk? Did you notice any physical changes?
Not necessarily physical, not necessarily anything other than Emily's voice is just a little bit deeper than yours.
And, with Emily, did you notice, a difference in you know, hobbies? Because for those that don't know, again, shameless plug in my TikTok, I like to draw. I am the artist in here. Did you notice Emily ever taking an interest in drawing or anything creative like that, or did she just, you know, prefer other things?
Emily had to be in the mood to draw. I remember when we would have art class, and she would honestly say that this is a drag and I don't want to do this. But other than that, Emily, as far as other hobbies go, she listened to music a lot.
So, can you tell our viewers, like, any acute or spot-on changes that you might see if, you know, comparing me and Emily?
Well, as I said, Emily's voice is just a little bit deeper than yours. Emily, the way she talks, she kind of overcomplicates her words. She uses really big words and complicates her sentences when she doesn't need to.
Especially when she gets upset.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Emily's eyes are a little bit darker than yours too.
So you can see, like, you know, have you ever noticed, like, when, you know, the host Evelise, or when I'm out, or when any of us are out, have you ever noticed, like, when we switch, like, any signs of us switching? Like, how can you tell when we are changing?
Usually I can't tell until after the fact, especially if I'm not, like, paying attention, or I just usually don't see you guys do that tick. But I could say for after the fact, if you guys aren't fronting and pretending to be one another, then 9 times out of 10 I usually tell by the eye color or the tone of your voice.
So did you think, you know, you knew us for almost 8 years, and you already know that a lot of us, you know, especially me, I have depression and anxiety, whereas Emily has pretty much OCD, and I'm pretty sure L and Zero have anger issues. So, you know, was that hard for you when we were dating and seeing each other? Was it hard for you to keep up with the constant change and mood changes and swings and stuff?
It wasn't hard. Well, me personally, I'm the type of person to where it's like I will put the other person's emotions before mine, especially back then. So if I saw, like, say, like, Zero came out at the time, Zero was very closed off, and she was very grumpy, and she always had her arms crossed. She always looked at you with this death stare. And me being me, I would look back at her and be like, what do you want? Like, I would just mess with her, and she just would shut down. She wouldn't shut down, but she would just look away like a child throwing a tantrum. Like, when a child gets in trouble and they, like, mumble under their breath, like, trying to say something smart.
So, as we're talking about children, you know our little Kira.
Yes, I do.
And, you know, about Kira, what would you say triggers Kira? Like, what would you say, after knowing us for so long, how did Kira interact with you and people around her?
First we're gonna go over the trigger. Trigger for Kira, I don't think there really was one. Kira would usually come out at very random times. The only time I could really count on her coming out was if she was watching and she saw me, because I think I was the first person that she saw in the outside world when she was made. So she practically imprinted on me. So I'm more or less like a parental figure to her. So I think the only trigger that I can really count on or say was me. But as for her interacting and being with everybody else, she was fine. She knew where to be herself, and she knew where and when and where to front and act like you at the time.
Now, you know, a lot of the times with people with DID, a lot of the times they get the question, are you faking it, or is this real, or this has to be made up? Please don't do that. But did you ever think that, you know, is this real? Is she faking or is she for real? Like, did that thought ever come into your head?
Not me personally. That thought never came into my head because I, for one, have been through that because my family is, as of most old-fashioned and strict families, they are very not peculiar, but they don't necessarily believe in mental illness, or they don't believe in certain mental illnesses.
So you grew up around that and you were like, this isn't right. Mm-hmm. Everyone deserves, you know, a leap of faith in having some kind of patience and belief. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you ever, like, you know, meeting our mom? Mm-hmm. How was your relationship with our mother?
Back then, my relationship with your mother was very, I can't think of a good word to use, so I'm kind of going to use estranged, because your mother and I didn't necessarily talk, like, casually or leisurely, unless it was about you, asking how you were, or where you were, or if you were okay, or anything else like that. So, your mother and I were very estranged from each other. Now our relationship is a little bit, I would say just a tiny smidget of a bit better, because now we're able to sit down and, like, watch a movie and actually, like, kind of communicate with each other.
Did you, you know, overall, do you think that we lived pretty successfully? Do you think that we achieved a lot of accomplishments?
Well, you sure achieved a lot more than I have.
So, us, you know, graduating high school and going to trade school, you know, having ups and downs, do you think that we handled it very strategically, logically, very okay? Like, did you think that, you know, we just broke down?
There were times where you guys broke down. Not when something didn't go your way, but if something was a very big stop sign, you guys would stop for a second. Depending on the severity of the situation, you guys would kind of break down, or just stop in your tracks for a second and just be like, kind of take a moment to breathe and assess everything. That was mostly Emily, but you guys were very adaptive, I would say, because you guys were able to assess the situation, think of a solution, and then execute that solution.
We were able to see from each other's perspective and work out the best logical way to fix it. Mm-hmm. So, you've met Rosalee. Mm-hmm. Hello everyone, my name is Rosalee. You know how Rosalee is, very, very motherly, very mentor-like. Mm-hmm. Do you think Rosalee played a big part in us gradually being able to get better and better with us coping?
In your inside world, I would say yes. On the outside, Rosalee didn't really come out too much during high school, unless there was something that you guys had, like, a problem with. Like, sometimes you guys would have problems with schoolwork or a study, or even just any type of problem, and Rosalee would 9 times out of 10 come out to try to assess the situation, try to fix it, or even just squash the situation altogether.
Do you think that even with our aggressive alters, thus being 0 and L, mm-hmm. persecutor and introjector, I will put in a picture now explaining what those two are. Do you think that with our aggressive alters, when they would come out, do you think that we were considered dangerous?
Maybe to the wrong person. But, L and 0 had, as anybody would, buttons. Buttons that you had to press to get them to, I would say, show their true colors, or their more or less natural instinct.
So they were really manipulative.
I would say so.
Did they ever, you know, make you feel like you couldn't be around us, uncomfortable? Did they ever pose an actual threat to others?
My personal experience with them, Zero and L, there were times to where I would have to take a minute and try to, like, not calm down, but kind of, like, breathe and assess the situation and what's going on and how to act accordingly. Because I would say Zero and L are very sporadic. They're very up in your face and just very random, I would say. So you would always have to, like, sometimes you have to take a step back
and be on guard and prepare for anything. Because when you get wild cards like that, anyone with DID can have aggressive alters. And a lot of the times, you know, especially people new to DID and don't fully understand what fronting is or fully understand what it is to be co-conscious or completely black out and have someone else take over. It can be very scary, but it shouldn't be taken to the point to where this person cannot be around people in society. This person is a danger to themselves and others. It shouldn't be like that. Do you think, you know, out of all the time that you knew us, do you think that, like, how would you describe us as just one person? Like, what's the one word that pops into your head that, you know, you would just say when someone says, describe them?
As one whole person?
Yeah, just if no one knew that we had DID and they were just like, hey, how is she? Like, is she a cool person?
I would say that as a whole, you guys are pretty cool peoples. But I think the one big word that I would use is you guys are very intelligent and very smart. Because you guys were always, even when I first met you, or when, like, we started hanging out a lot more, you guys treated life like it was a game of chess. So I would say you're very intellectual and very
strategic.
Yes.
Would you consider us spontaneous?
In what way?
Creatively.
Yes.
Now, you know about Elijah. Hi everyone, my name is Elijah. You know Elijah is gay.
Yes, I do.
Alters actually have different pronouns, different genders, and yes, they have different sexualities. Elijah is a male alter that is gay, and he is a happy lad. He's all rainbows and very happy, and we love him to death. So, how would you consider, you know, Elijah and him being male inside of a female's body? Like, when you first met Elijah, how did you feel about that?
I was a little confused at first because I wasn't sure how that worked, but I was like, okay, this makes a little bit of sense because I did do my research and I do talk to you guys and ask questions, or I did ask questions. So it was like, okay, so I kind of understand because there are times where people can have alters that are of the opposite sex or any type of sexuality or gender or anything else like that. So I was like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. So I got to know Elijah for who he is and his little happy rainbow and unicorns loving his self.
You know, that's actually pretty cool because, you know, a lot of the times with people who have DID and the alters being of different genders, different pronouns, different sexualities, a lot of times people don't really understand how that works. So it's good that you were able to, you know, pick us out one by one, get to know our personalities, get to know who we are, and treat us separately. That's pretty cool because I feel like that created a more solidified bond between us. And, you know, everybody, a lot of the times, you know, with every other kind of relationship, DID or not, romantic relationships do not always work out. That is nothing to be ashamed of. Me and Jason are actually really good friends. You know, he helps me out a lot and I help him out a lot, and he's always there when I want someone to talk to, although I still think he's secretly in love with me. So
I don't know what you're trying to say here. What are you trying to insinuate here?
So the point is that you can have good relationships with people, you know, romantic relationships aren't just because they don't work out. That's not just a DID thing. It can happen to anybody. But the point is that he, as a person, took it upon himself to learn each of us individually and build a bond with each of us individually. So that helped us, you know, communicate better, get to know each other better. And I think, you know, in the long run, it actually helped us grow as people. Mm-hmm. What would you say?
I would say that it did, from my personal experience, it did help me personally grow as a person, because it taught me to kind of, I suppose, to kind of learn and treat people not the way that they wanted to be treated, because that's pretty basic. That's something that you're pretty much taught in kindergarten. But I guess for lack of a better term, treat people how they want to be treated. Like if, like, say Zero sometimes wants to be treated a little bit more with a little bit more aggression, and just to get her to stop and shut down, then that's how I treated her. And you guys, I treated you guys. Emily, I did the same thing for when we were kids. It's
basically a push and pull. Yeah. Like, you know, you give what you get, and that's how it is with anybody. So, okay, everybody, that's it for today. Say goodbye to Jason. Jason, say goodbye to everybody. Everybody remember, like, subscribe, share, comment, and let's grow together. Next video, I have no idea. Leave a comment down below of what you want to see next. And shoo!